Have a manual error-prone process that you want to transform into a seamless workflow that feels conversational and simple? Well, check out our Automate with Agentforce episode with Kiru. She will show us how she built a solution that uses MuleSoft RPA, Intelligent Document Processing or IDP, and Agentforce to do just that. Hello, I'm Jennifer Lee, Lead Admin Evangelist at Salesforce, and welcome to those who are joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those watching our episodes of Automate with Agentforce, where we explore how trailblazers like you are combining the power of MuleSoft, Flow, and Agentforce to build smart, scalable automations with no to low code. Now today, we're diving into a real-world scenario that a lot of teams can relate to, dealing with manual order uploads. So imagine PDFs in email inboxes and copying and pasting that information into legacy systems. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of places that things can go wrong. To help us break this down, we're joined by Kiru, a MuleSoft community ambassador and automation expert. She's going to walk us through how she's built a low-code solution using MuleSoft RPA, Intelligent Document Processing or IDP, and Agentforce to streamline the entire process from file to fulfillment. Welcome, Kiru.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks a lot for having me. I can't wait to showcase how low-code, no-code tools can completely transform a complex, time-consuming, and error-prone process into a seamless automated workflow.
So whether you're starting with low-code tools or looking to scale your automation strategy, you're going to love this episode. So let's jump in. Over to you, Kiru.
Thank you. So let me introduce you to our fictional company called as Global Chemicals. Global Chemicals, as the name indicates, is a distributor and supplier of specialty chemicals for thousands of B2B customers across industries. Every day, Global Chemicals receives thousands of orders from such customers, and these orders come in as unstructured, scanned PDFs. And as you can imagine, every customer has their own way of creating and formatting these order PDFs. These orders would then have to be entered into an ERP system, which is, let's say, old school. As in, it does not have any modern integrations or API connectivity. And the only way to get data into this ERP system is like how a human user would do it using the mouse and the keyboard. So this is how a typical day for an employee at Global Chemicals would look like. Every day he opens a folder full of PDFs, and he opens each PDF and then identifies which customer the PDF is from, and then using this information identifies then the right fields that he has to put it into the ERP system, and then he enters each order manually into the ERP system. Not only is this process slow and time-consuming and repetitive, but it is also super error-prone because a single typo can result in wrong orders, unhappy customers, and a lot of extra time in fixing mistakes. So we now set out to automate this process end-to-end, as in from the time the PDF lands in the folder up until the time when it is created as an order in the ERP system and the employee is notified of the order creation using only low-code, no-code tools. So let's see now how each building block in this end-to-end process automation is going to look like. And now for that, let me share my screen. So this is how the end-to-end process automation is going to look like. So the service employee is going to ask Agentforce, could you please upload all the purchase orders from the input folder? Agentforce in the background is going to trigger a Salesforce flow, and the Salesforce flow in turn is going to kick off a MuleSoft RPA bot. The employee immediately gets notified saying that the upload process has started so that he can now focus on other value-adding tasks instead of data entry. In the background, the MuleSoft RPA bot that was kicked off is checking this input folder for any orders, and if it finds an order, it is going to send the order to IDP. IDP would then first classify the order according to which customer it came from. And according to the customer type, it is then forwarded to a very specific document extraction action, which is then extracting all the order info like the order number, the order total, as well as the order items. IDP then returns this information back to the RPA bot. The RPA bot then does some formatting and validation on the information, and then, as a last step, would open the ERP system and then enter the order one by one. And then the employee realizes, oh, I have started an upload request some time back. And what is the status of my upload request now? So he asks the same to Agentforce. Agentforce in the background is then going to trigger another Salesforce flow, which in turn is querying the status of the bot. If the bot has finished running and the upload was successful, Agentforce communicates the same to the user as well as gives some information like the order number and the order total back to the service employee so that he can go ahead and check the order in the ERP system if necessary. So this is our end-to-end automated workflow. And now let's look closely at each building block in detail. The first one that we are going to look into is the classification and the data extraction. And for this, we are going to use something called as MuleSoft IDP. IDP stands for Intelligent Document Processing. MuleSoft IDP is a low-code, no-code tool which enables a user to convert unstructured documents into structured data using nothing but simple natural language prompts. Let's create a document action for classification together. So this is a screen we get when we try to create a new document action. And the first step is to choose which type of document we are going to extract data from. As you can see, there is invoice, purchase order, and then there is something called as generic. Even though the document that we are going to extract data from is a purchase order, we are going to be going with generic today because we only want, in the first step, the classification for the document. So if we do go with purchase order, we have a lot of extra fields, which we do not need in the first step. So let's choose generic and let's give a name for our document action. And let's click on create. Okay, so now we have created a document action, and now let us upload two of the invoice types that we might encounter in this process. So one invoice is from the company called as Inbrew, and another one is from a customer called Polychemtex. So we now try to classify these two document types and see how is the results. Okay, now let's give a simple natural language prompt in order to classify these two types of invoices that we have here. And let's give a name to the result. So let's now look at the prompt a little bit more closely. Yeah. So here I am asking the AI model in order to classify the given invoice into one of the below categories, either Polychemtex or Inbrew. And in addition, I'm also instructing the model on how exactly it should return the output. So it should return only the category and no additional text. It's very important to specify exactly what you want the model to return so that we can predict what is coming out and we can deal with it then in the business layer later. And finally, I'm also telling the model to give back only what is present in the document. This will prevent the model from hallucinating and only give back data if it is actually present in the document. So that's it. So let's now add the prompt and let's quickly test what is the classification that we are getting out for both of these invoice types. So the classification is now back, and you can see that this one is classified as Polychemtex, which is correct. And this one is classified as Inbrew, which is also correct. So we have now classified these two types of invoices. And what is also interesting is in IDP, we have something called as a confidence threshold. So if the extraction of the data confidence of the extracted data falls below a certain threshold, we can decide if we need to send it for manual review. So, for example, in this case, we have set the threshold as 80, and the extracted confidence value was 100%, which is way above our threshold. So, it is okay. But if in case it falls below 80%, then we have here a section for manual review, which we can then allow a human user to have a look at the document, correct the data, and then submit so that the rest of the process can still proceed in an automated manner. Okay. And now the final step is to publish the document. And once it is published, it is going to be available as an API in Exchange. And then this can be consumed by any external application, like, for example, a MuleSoft RPA bot or any point app, or even for that matter, any external application. Okay, now the first step in our automated process is done, where we have, with a simple natural language prompt in 5 minutes, classified 2 types of documents that we would encounter in this process. Now, the next step, once we have the classification, is to extract all the detailed information from the order. So let's see how this looks like for the first type of invoice, which is the Polychem text invoice. We can see that there's some prompts that are already configured, and we have here 2 sections, fields and tables. In fields, we have to configure those data that are simple data types. Like, for example, the order net, the tax amount, the order total, etc., as in where we expect just a simple string to be coming back. But if in case we have complex data types, like, for example, the billing address, which contains multiple subparts, we can configure it in tables so that we get the information back in a more structured manner. And similarly also for purchase order items, which is going to be a big table as well. And what is also super cool is when we choose tables, then we can give an overarching prompt for the full table. So for example, here for purchase order items, I am giving which columns that I want to extract from the table. And for one of the columns, which is the unit price, I can also specify a very specific prompt for that particular column. As you can see, this is a unit price over here. And when the numbers get about 1,000, they are also including a comma. So what I'm saying here is if the unit price contains the comma, please extract the result without the comma. This will make it easier for me to parse the results in my RPA bot later. So that's it. Now let's run and let's check how the results are for our prompts. So now we have the results, and we can see that there's the address information, and we also have a confidence score for each value. And similarly, let's check the purchase order items. And here also everything seems to be extracted perfectly with a confidence score of 100%. And you can see it's not a single confidence for the full table, but a confidence score for each value in the table. So even if one falls below the confidence threshold, then it is going to go to the human review. Okay, so now we have extracted all the information that we want from the first invoice type. What is not shown in this demo is you need to also create a similar one for the second invoice type as well. Okay, so now we have classified the document and we have extracted all the needed information. And now we need to orchestrate the whole process. So we have to check the folder to see if there is an order coming up. If there is, then we need to send it to the IDP actions that we created. And then in the final step, we have to also create the order in the ERP system. So in order to do this full orchestration, we are going to be using the MuleSoft RPA bot. So MuleSoft RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. It is also a low-code, no-code tool which allows the user to create software bots which mimic a human user in order to perform some process automations. So they interact with the applications like how a human would do it. they can type, they can click on the mouse, they can identify images, etc. On the left, you can see that there is a lot of actions that are available. And what we need to do is just drag and drop these actions into this work area and then chain them together to kind of do our process step by step. So for our process, the first step is to check for the invoices in a particular folder. And this is the folder that the bot is going to monitor. And you can see that there is already one invoice, which is the Polychem text one, already present. So if an invoice is found, then it is going to go ahead and then it is going to send the PDF to our first API, which is the classification one that we created in IDP. And IDP is going to return back the classification, and which would be either Polychem text or InBrew. And depending on this, it is going to take one of these paths. If it's Polychem text, then it's going to go to this workflow. And here we are sending again the PDF to the second API, which we created in IDP, which is going to extract all the details from the order, like the order net, the order number, as well as the item information. Now, RPA bot, armed with this data, is going to, as a final step, open the ERP system and then type in the values that it received from IDP and actually create the order in the ERP system. So that is our workflow end to end, which is orchestrated via the RPA bot. Now, what is left is we have to somehow allow the service employee in order to trigger the bot, as well as monitor what is the status of the execution, if the upload was successful or did it have any issues. And in order to do that, we are going to be using two Salesforce flows. The first flow would be for triggering the RPA bot, and the second one is for querying the status of an triggered RPA bot. So let's have a look at the first flow in detail. It is an auto launch flow, meaning it can be called from somewhere external. And in this case, we are going to be calling it from Agentforce. And the second step is start the invoice extractor bot. So we are going to trigger the bot that we just saw. And if everything is successful, the bot is going to be returning a 201 if it is successfully triggered. Or if it was having some issues with the trigger, then it is going to return one of the error statuses. And here we check if the response code is 201, meaning everything was okay. If yes, then we are going to assign a success message, which Agentforce will then subsequently read and then communicate to the user that everything was fine. In addition, we are also going to be creating a variable called execution ID, which will be then used by the get flow later. Similarly, in case of a failure, we assign a failure message and execution ID will be empty. So that would be the first flow. Now let's go to the second one, which is used for querying the execution status of the bot. Again, it is an auto launch flow, and again, it will be called from Agentforce. And here we are getting the status of the bot. It's an external action. And here we expect an execution ID to be given as input to the flow. And the query will happen with this execution ID, and depending on the status would be returned as either in process or pending, or success or failure. If it is in process or pending, then we assign a message saying the bot is still running, please check back after some time. In case an end status like success or failure is reached, then we set a success message, for example, in case of a success. And in addition, we also set some additional details of the orders that were created, which is the invoice number and the total value of the order, which can also then be communicated to the user. Similarly, when we have some error during the execution of the bot, then we also assign an error message, which will be read again by Agentforce. So these are the two flows. Now, the last and final step is to create a method or a front end for the service employee to interact with our automations, which is going to be the agent. So here in our agent, we have one topic, which is called as the order upload. And in this topic, we have a brief description on what the topic is doing. And we also have here a scope which explains to the agent what the agent is allowed to do and what it is not. And in addition, we also have a few instructions which helps the agent to understand when it has to take certain. When the user asks to upload orders, please use the trigger order upload flow. So this is the first flow that we saw. And when the user inquires about the status of an upload, use the flow get order upload status. This is the second one. And here we also asking Agentforce that in case an execution ID is not mentioned in the chat, then please ask it explicitly from the user so that we could give it as input to the second flow that we saw. So that's it. Basically, these are all the configurations of the agent. And now the only thing that is left is to test our agent and see if everything is working as expected. So let's first now ask the agent to upload the invoices that are available in the input folder. And in this case, it's just going to be one invoice that we saw. It says now it's triggering. And you can see that there is a message returned, which is the output of the first flow, where it says that the upload has been triggered successfully. This comes from the message that we saw earlier. And it also gives us back the execution ID that was communicated back by the bot. So now we can see in the RPA manager what is the bot doing in the background. So you can see the workflow that we created earlier, and it is already in this step. So it has already classified the invoice. It has now identified that it was polychemtex. It has extracted all the details from the polychemtex. And now it is going to the final step, which is the entering of the details into the ERP system. So let's now see how it looks like. You can see now it's opening the ERP system, entering the login details, logging into the system, and then clicking on add invoice data. And then it is typing in all the details of the order that it received from IDP. So now it's entering the header details, and now it starts with the first item. As you can see, it's quite a boring process, and it takes a human employee forever in order to enter the details one by one for the order. So once it's done, the bot would finish and then close the ERP system. So it's done now, and it is going to click OK, close the ERP system, and then log out of the system. Now let's go back to our agent, and then let's ask what is the status of the upload request. Now you can see that there is this message returned that the upload was successful, which we also verified in the RPA manager. And here are the details of the order that were created in the ERP system. And if the user wants, he can go back and then also have a look at this particular order if everything is fine. And what is in the middle is also very interesting, which is called as a reasoning pane, where we can see why the agent decided to react to a query in a certain way. So for example, you can see here that there is a topic selection. In our case, we just had one topic, which is the order upload. But in case there were multiple topics, we also can see here why the agent decided to choose a topic for a particular query. And similarly, we can see that the action it chose to execute for the query is the get order upload status, which is also exactly as we have instructed it to do. And it did not ask us for an execution ID because it already found an execution ID in the chat history. So it gave it to the second Salesforce flow that we saw. And this was the output that it got from the flow, which it converted into this message back to the user. So it's also very important to use this pane in order to understand how the agent is working for the queries, and to also test so that we understand how it is working, and then we only get back what we expect from the agent. So before we wrap up, let's have a look at some of the few key takeaways from what we just saw. First, you don't even have to write a single line of code in order to automate a process as complex as the one that we just saw. With RPA and IDP on the MuleSoft side and Flow and Agentforce on the Salesforce side, we have a very powerful low-code, no-code toolkit that allows automations to be accessible and maintainable. Second, Agentforce brings it all together in a very simple conversational manner that allows employees in order to trigger as well as monitor automations. This is an architecture that you can replicate in your organization as well. At the end of the day, automation is not just about saving time, but it is about empowering your employees in order to focus on what really matters, and at the same time delivering a better value and experience for your customers. Thank you very much, and now back to you, Jen.
Kiru, that was such an inspiring demo. I loved how you shared your process, your insights, and you really made it easy, right? You made it so easy. And I love how this use case really shows the power of blending IDP, RPA, and Agentforce, a powerful trio to really unlock the real business value fast. So thank you again, Kiru, for being a guest on Automate with Agentforce.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
If you're inspired by what you saw or want to explore more, check out Kiru's blog on the Salesforce admin's website using the short link that you see on the screen. And if you built something cool, we want to hear about it. Share your use case, join a local meetup or user group, or drop your use case in our call for presenters form that you see on the screen. We're always on the lookout for use cases built by practitioners like you. And who knows, you just might be featured in a future episode of Automate with Agentforce. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep automating with intention.